I never imagined that the walls of the house I built brick by brick, with my bare hands and countless sacrifices, would one day echo with words so cruel that they pierced my heart more than any knife ever could. It was just 2 days after my son's wedding. The decorations were still hanging, faded balloons swaying in the corners of the living room, the faint smell of flowers lingering in the air. My heart had been overflowing with joy during the ceremony. I had believed this marriage would finally bring happiness into my son's life and perhaps peace into mine. But that illusion shattered in an instant. "Mom, my son," Daniel said coldly, his voice sharp and unfamiliar, "you can't stay here anymore." I froze, the plate I was holding slipping from my trembling hands and crashing to the floor. My daughter-in-law, Melissa, stood behind him, her arms crossed, lips curled into a faint smirk. What do you mean, Daniel?" My voice cracked, my throat suddenly dry. Melissa stepped forward before he could answer. "He means exactly what he said. This is our house now. You've done your part. It's time for you to move on." The words echoed in my ears like thunder. Move on? From my own house? Tears welled up, but I forced myself to stay strong. "Daniel, this is the home your father and I built together. Every brick has our sweat in it. How can you throw me out?" Daniel looked away, shame flickering in his eyes for a brief moment before Melissa placed her hand on his arm. He straightened. "I appreciate what you did, Mom, but I need to start my life with Melissa, independently. You'll understand independently by throwing out the very woman who raised him alone, who worked double shifts to pay his tuition, who starved herself so he could eat." My chest tightened as if all the years of sacrifice had been reduced to ashes in one cruel sentence. I staggered to the couch, unable to stand, my whole body trembling. Melissa leaned closer, her whisper sharp as venom. "You don't belong here anymore. Leave with dignity, or I'll make sure you regret staying." Her words cut deeper than Daniel's silence. The neighbors began to gather outside the door, whispers floating through the air. The humiliation was unbearable. I wanted to scream, to cry, but my pride kept me silent. "Fine," I said finally, my voice shaking. "If this is what you want, Daniel, I'll go." Melissa smirked triumphantly, while Daniel avoided my eyes, pretending to straighten the wedding photographs on the wall. I slowly climbed the stairs to my room, each step heavier than the last. Memories flashed before my eyes. Daniel's first steps, his first day of school, the nights I sat awake nursing his fever while my husband was away at work. And now, this. In my room, I packed a small suitcase with trembling hands. Every item I touched seemed to mock me. I wasn't just losing my home, I was losing my son. But as I zipped the bag shut, my eyes fell on the old wooden trunk under my bed. My secret. The one thing no one, not Daniel, not Melissa, not even the neighbors, had ever known. My hands hovered over it, my breath quickening. A storm of emotions swirled inside me. They thought I was weak, powerless, unwanted, but they didn't know the truth. As I placed my hand on the trunk, a faint smile crept onto my tear-streaked face. Melissa may think she won today, but she has no idea what I've been hiding, and soon, neither will Daniel. I closed my suitcase, wiped my tears, and whispered to myself, "It's time they find out who I really am." I sat on the edge of my bed that night, suitcase packed in my feet, the echoes of Melissa's sharp voice still stabbing my ears. The wooden trunk under the bed seemed to call out to me, but I pushed the urge away. It wasn't time, not yet. Instead, my mind drifted backward, back to the years that led me here, back to the struggles that Daniel never really saw, or maybe never wanted to see. When Daniel was just 5, his father, Richard, died suddenly in a car accident. I still remember the knock at the door, the officer's solemn face, the folded papers in his hand. That night, my world collapsed. I had no job, no savings, and a son whose innocent eyes looked up at me for answers I didn't have. But I couldn't let him see me break. I found work at a factory during the day, scrubbing offices at night. My hands bled from scrubbing floors. My back ached from lifting heavy boxes. But I endured it all because of one promise I whispered to Richard's gravestone. I'll make sure our son never suffers. And I kept that promise. Every penny I earned went toward Daniel's education. I wore second-hand clothes while I bought him new ones. I skipped meals so he could have proper lunches at school. By the time he entered college, he believed we were living comfortably. He never knew the sacrifices behind it. I wanted him to dream bigger, to never feel the weight of poverty the way I did. But perhaps in protecting him from the truth, I shielded him from appreciating the value of sacrifice. Melissa came into Daniel's life during his final year of college. At first, she seemed sweet, attentive, polite, even affectionate toward me. I thought she loved him for who he was. But over time, I began to notice the little things, the way her eyes lit up whenever Daniel mentioned money, the disdainful curl of her lips whenever I talked about my simple life. She once told me casually, "Daniel deserves better than a cramped house like this. Don't you think?" I laughed it off, thinking it was just youthful arrogance. But deep inside, unease gnawed at me. Still, I stayed silent. For Daniel's happiness, I swallowed my worries. I prayed she would grow into a kind partner. But on the wedding day, as I watched her diamond necklace sparkle brighter than her smile, I knew my prayers had gone unanswered. After the wedding, Melissa wasted no time. I overheard snippets of her conversations, talk of new furniture, renovations, and modernizing the house. But the most painful words were whispered one evening when she thought I was asleep. "Daniel," she said softly, "we'll never build our life if your mother is always here, hovering around." "Don't you want our own space?" Daniel hesitated. "But this is her home." Melissa pressed on, her tone dripping with persuasion. "Homes can be transferred. Papers can be signed. You're the man now. You should take charge. If you really love me, you'll put us first." I lay awake that night, silent tears staining my pillow, realizing she was planting seeds of separation in his heart. Just when the humiliation of being thrown out was fresh, I received a visit from someone I hadn't seen in years, Margaret, my childhood friend. She arrived unannounced, holding a basket of fresh bread and her usual warm smile. "Emma," she said, her eyes soft with pity, "I heard what happened." Word spreads fast in this town. Shame burned my cheeks. "Then you know I've been discarded like yesterday's trash." She took my hand firmly. "Don't you dare say that. You've endured more than most could. And don't forget, you still hold the key to everything." I stiffened, my eyes darting toward the trunk under the bed. Margaret knew. She was one of the few who knew pieces of my hidden past, though even she didn't know the full extent. "Margaret," I whispered, "I don't want to use it. Not unless I have no choice." Her gaze was steady. "And what if that choice comes sooner than you think?" Later that evening, Daniel came into my room while Melissa was out. For a brief moment, I saw the boy I once knew, the one who clung to my skirts when he was scared of the dark. "Mom," he said quietly, avoiding my eyes, I didn't want it to be like this." My heart softened. "Then why, Daniel? Why are you letting her drive me out?" He clenched his fists. Because she's my wife now. I have to put her first, and your mother second?" I asked, my voice trembling. He winced but said nothing. Instead, he walked away, leaving me alone with my breaking heart. That night, as I prepared to leave, I opened the trunk. Inside were documents, letters, and a sealed envelope that had been waiting for years. Evidence of who I truly was, and of a past I had kept buried to protect Daniel. If revealed, these secrets could change everything. Not just my place in this family, but Daniel's entire world. I traced my fingers over the envelope, my heart pounding. Was it time? Just then, Melissa's voice floated up the stairs. Tomorrow, we'll meet the lawyer. I want the property papers. The next morning, the sun rose, but instead of its usual warmth, I felt only the cold weight of betrayal pressing on my chest. I could hear Melissa humming downstairs, her voice sharp and triumphant, like a victory tune. Daniel's footsteps followed, steady and heavy, as though he was dragging chains he didn't know how to break. That day, I knew things would change, one way or another. Melissa had arranged a meeting with a lawyer at the house. She made sure to invite a few relatives and neighbors under the pretense of celebrating our new beginning. But I knew the truth. She wanted witnesses, people who would see me hand over my house like a defeated, powerless widow. When the lawyer arrived, Melissa greeted him with exaggerated politeness. "Please, Mr. Harris, come in. Thank you for helping us secure our future." Her words tasted like poison to me. I walked into the room slowly, my suitcase still near the door. My eyes met Daniel's. He looked away quickly, guilt spreading across his face. The lawyer opened his briefcase and spread the papers on the dining table. "Mrs. Carter," he said to me, "I just need your signature here. It will transfer ownership of the property into your son's name." Melissa's smile widened. "It's just a formality, really. After all, Daniel is your son. Isn't it natural for him to inherit?" My hands trembled, but not from fear, from anger, from the years of silence that had allowed people like her to think they could trample over me. I didn't sit down. Instead, I placed my hand firmly on the table and spoke in a voice stronger than I thought I still had. "No," I said, and the room fell silent. Melissa blinked. "Excuse me?" I looked directly at her, then at the lawyer. "This house will not be transferred to anyone. Not today, not ever." Daniel's face turned red. "Mom, why are you making this difficult? It's for the best." "For the best?" I snapped, my voice trembling with fury. "For the best of who, Daniel? Certainly not mine. And not yours either. This isn't about family or love. This is about greed," Melissa scoffed. "Greed? Do you even hear yourself? You're clinging to a house that doesn't belong to you anymore. You're just an old woman living in the past." Her words struck me, but instead of breaking me, they fueled me. I leaned forward, my eyes locked on hers. "You think you know everything, Melissa, but you don't know me. You don't know what I've sacrificed, and you certainly don't know what I'm hiding." The neighbors gasped softly, leaning closer. Melissa's smirk faltered, but she quickly recovered. "Empty threats. That's all you have." I walked to the stairs and returned with the old wooden trunk. Gasps filled the room as I set it down with a thud. My hands shook as I opened it, revealing neatly organized folders, letters, and a sealed envelope. "Do you remember, Daniel?" I said softly, "how I told you your father worked in construction before he—" The lawyer leaned closer, his eyes widening as he glanced at the documents. "Mrs. Carter, these are ownership certificates, stocks, property deeds. This isn't just wealth. This is a fortune." Gasps erupted around the room. Daniel staggered back, his face pale. Melissa's mouth hung open. "You mean to tell me," she whispered, "you've been rich all along?" I looked at her coldly. "Yes, and I stayed silent while you schemed for this little house, thinking it was all I had. You laughed at me, humiliated me, called me weak, but you never knew I held more power than you could ever imagine." Melissa's face twisted with rage. "You're lying. This is some trick." The lawyer shook his head firmly. "These documents are legitimate. In fact, Mrs. Carter owns multiple properties across the state. She doesn't just own this house. She could buy 10 more like it." Daniel looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Mom, why didn't you ever tell me?" My voice softened. Because I wanted you to be a good man, Daniel. Not one blinded by greed. I wanted you to learn the value of love, of sacrifice. Melissa grabbed his arm desperately. Daniel, don't listen to her. She's manipulating you. Think about us, about our future. But Daniel pulled his arm away, his eyes burning with confusion and shame. Before I could say more, Melissa stood, her face red with fury. Fine. You want to play games, old woman? Then let's see how your precious neighbors react when they learn your other secret. The room froze. I narrowed my eyes. What are you talking about? Melissa smirked darkly. Did you think I married Daniel without doing my research? I know things about you too, Emma. Things you've kept buried. About your past before Richard. About the choices you made to survive. Gasps rippled through the room again. Daniel's eyes widened. Mom, what is she talking about? Melissa crossed her arms, triumphant. She's not the saint she pretends to be. She's been hiding something darker than money, and when I reveal it, this entire town will see her true face. The room buzzed with whispers, curiosity, and fear. My heart pounded in my chest. She didn't know everything, but what if she knew enough to twist the truth? I clenched my fists. You don't scare me, Melissa. But if you want a war, you'll have one. Melissa leaned closer, her smile wicked. Then get ready, Emma. Because by tomorrow, everyone will know what you've been hiding. The next evening, Melissa made good on her threat. She invited the same neighbors, Daniel's co-workers, and even extended relatives under the pretense of a family dinner. I walked into the room, my chest tight, but my head high. She wanted to ruin me publicly, but she underestimated the strength of a woman who had been silent too long. The dining room was alive with chatter until Melissa tapped her glass sharply, commanding attention like a queen in her castle. Everyone, she began, her smile sharp as glass. Thank you for coming. Tonight, I'd like to clear up a few misunderstandings. Gasps rippled through the guests. Daniel shifted uneasily beside her, looking like a man caught between two fires. Melissa pointed at me with venom in her eyes. This woman pretends to be a victim, clinging to her house as if she owns some moral high ground. But what if I told you she's not the innocent old lady she pretends to be? What if I told you she's been hiding a shameful past? The room fell into a heavy silence. Melissa turned dramatically toward the crowd. Before she married Richard Carter, before she became respectable, Emma lived a very different life. I found records, proof, that she once worked in a bar, barely making ends meet, mixing with questionable people, and worse, she took money from a man she never married to survive. Is that the kind of woman you all look up to? Gasps echoed through the room. A few whispered. Others stared at me with wide eyes. Daniel's face paled. Mom, is this true? My throat tightened, but I stood tall. Yes, Daniel, it's true. The room buzzed with shock. Melissa smirked, thinking she had won. I did whatever I had to, I continued, my voice rising, to survive. When your father met me, I was struggling. I had nothing, but I refused to let poverty define me. I refused to let the cruelty of life break me. And Richard saw strength in me. Not shame, I turned slowly, addressing the room. Yes, I worked in a bar. Yes, I accepted help from a man who was kind when the world was not. And no, I'm not ashamed, because those choices fed me when I was starving. Those choices gave me the strength to raise my son when I had no one. My past does not humiliate me. It shaped me. The room grew quiet, the whispers dying into an uneasy hush. Melissa laughed bitterly. You're just spinning this into some sob story. You think anyone here will respect you now? The lawyer from the day before stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Mrs. Carter has been nothing but honest. And if we're exposing truths, perhaps it's time others shared theirs. He pulled out another folder from his briefcase, one Melissa had not expected. While reviewing the property documents, I came across financial discrepancies linked to Melissa's bank account. Mrs. Carter asked me to dig deeper, and what I found, gasps filled the room as he revealed the documents. Melissa has been siphoning money from Daniel's salary for months, transferring funds into a separate account under her maiden name. She wasn't planning a future with you, Daniel. She was planning an escape. With your money. All eyes turned to Melissa. Her face drained of color. Daniel's mouth fell open. Melissa, tell me this isn't true, she stammered. It's not what it looks like. I was just saving for us. The lawyer cut her off. In secret? Under a false name? These records don't lie. Gasps, murmurs. One woman covered her mouth, whispering, My God. I stepped forward, my voice trembling with restrained fury. You humiliated me in front of my family, Melissa. You mocked me, called me useless, and treated me as though I was disposable. But the truth is out now. You married my son not for love, but for greed. And you thought this little house was all I had. I turned to the crowd, raising the sealed envelope once more. This is the will your father left behind, Daniel. Everything, the stocks, the properties, the wealth, passes to me until the day I choose to hand it over. And after tonight, it will never, ever pass through Melissa's hands. The room erupted. Some gasped, others clapped softly in support. Melissa's face twisted in rage, but she had no words. Daniel's eyes filled with tears as he looked at me. Mom, I didn't know. I didn't see. You didn't want to see, I whispered, pain heavy in my voice. You let her poison your heart against me. You threw me out of my own home for her. Daniel dropped his gaze, shame written across his face. The lawyer straightened his papers. Based on Mrs. Carter's request, I'll be filing legal documents to ensure Melissa is excluded from any inheritance rights. Furthermore, given her financial misconduct, Daniel, you may want to consult me privately about annulment options. The crowd gasped louder this time. Melissa's mask cracked completely. She lunged forward. You can't do this to me. You can't just erase me. Daniel stepped back, his voice firm for the first time. No, Melissa. You erased yourself. Gasps turned to murmurs of agreement. Some guests shook their heads in disgust. Others whispered about justice. Melissa's scream broke the silence. You'll regret this. All of you. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the chandelier rattled. The room was left in stunned silence. Daniel stood motionless, his head bowed, tears streaking his cheeks. I swallowed hard, my own tears burning. I never wanted it to come to this. I wanted peace, but peace cannot live where there is greed. The neighbors began to applaud softly, a ripple of support that warmed the ice around my heart. Still, the wound cut deep. Daniel finally looked at me. His voice broke. Mom, can you ever forgive me? My chest tightened. I opened my mouth to answer, but the words would not come, because forgiveness was not so simple. Trust once broken was not easily repaired. I turned away, wiping my eyes, my voice trembling as I spoke to no one in particular. I've lost so much already. The question is, can I ever find the strength to open my heart again? Or has the damage been done forever? The room was silent. All eyes on me, waiting for an answer I wasn't ready to give. It has been almost a year since that night when the truth tore my family apart. The echoes of gasps, whispers, and Melissa's furious screams still visit me sometimes in dreams. But the house is quieter now. Too quiet, perhaps. Melissa never returned. Daniel filed for divorce after uncovering even more lies and debts she had hidden. The process was ugly, humiliating, and painful for him, but it was necessary. He moved back into the house for a short while, thinking it would repair what was broken between us. But relationships are not like shattered plates you can glue back together overnight. The cracks remain, no matter how carefully you press the pieces. The first few weeks after the scandal, I could not look at Daniel without feeling the sting of betrayal. How could my own son, the boy I carried in my arms, the boy I sacrificed everything for, cast me aside so easily? He apologized 1,000 times. He wept at my feet, begged me to forgive him. Some days, I almost did. Other days, the wound felt too raw. "Mom," he whispered once, his voice breaking, "if I spend the rest of my life proving my love, will it ever be enough?" I didn't answer him that day, because forgiveness is not given in a single word. It's shown in 1,000 little actions. And slowly, painfully, Daniel began to show it. He helped me in the garden, where his father once planted roses. He cooked me dinner, even if it was just burnt toast. He called me every morning before work, just to say, "I love you, Mom." 6 months later, I made a choice. I donated a portion of Richard's inheritance to a local women's shelter. Standing before those women, listening to their stories of survival, I realized my pain had a purpose. "I was once where you are," I told them, my voice trembling but strong, "hungry, desperate, belittled. But your past does not define you. Your courage does." The applause that followed wasn't just for me. It was for every woman in that room who refused to be broken. That day, I found a new calling. I began volunteering at the shelter twice a week, teaching job skills, cooking lessons, even reading bedtime stories to the children who clung to me as if I were their grandmother. Their laughter healed something inside me that even Daniel's apologies couldn't touch. And what of Daniel? Slowly, our bond grew stronger. Not perfect, not like before, but stronger in a different way, scarred, yet resilient. One evening, as we watched the sunset from the porch, he said quietly, "I don't deserve your love, Mom." I turned to him and placed my hand over his. "You're right. None of us deserve love. We receive it because someone chooses to give it anyway." He wept into my shoulder, and for the first time in a long while, I held him without anger. That was the moment I realized forgiveness doesn't erase the past. It frees the future. If you've listened to my story, perhaps you see yourself in me, betrayed, humiliated, cast aside by the very people you once gave your soul to. The truth is, life will break your heart. Sometimes it will be by the hands of strangers. Other times, by the hands of your own blood. But here is the lesson I want you to remember. Do not let betrayal harden you. Let it shape you. Do not let humiliation silence you. Let it teach you courage. And above all, do not let greed and lies steal your ability to forgive, not for them, but for your own soul. Today, when I sit by the fireplace with a cup of tea, I no longer think of Melissa's smirk or Daniel's silence. I think of the women in the shelter who smile with hope because someone believed in them. I think of my son, who now calls every night, not out of guilt, but out of love. And I think of you. Yes, you listening to my story. Tell me, have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Did you ever find the strength to forgive? Because if my journey has taught me anything, it's this. Hearts can break, but they can also heal. And when they heal, they become unbreakable.